Jace and Richard weren't always good friends. They met each other through the social events their careers took them to. Jace Parker was a famous entertainer. He was the lead guitarist and frontman of the popular band, the Crosstown Saints, but soon began a very successful solo career. Everyone knew him, and he often appeared in the tabloids, dating some up-and-coming actress. Richard Stevens, on the other hand, was an actor. He began his career as a teen actor and went on to land leading or supporting roles in major Hollywood films. His photo once appeared on a poster in a teen magazine, but now he was taking on more serious roles. "I can't believe you were with that blonde last night," Richard grinned. "Didn't she have a wedding ring on her finger?" "I guess," Jace laughed, "it may have been her last adventure." "You've come a long way," Richard remarked. "You're almost as good as me. I can take any woman I want. It doesn't matter who she is." "Almost as good?" Jace asked. "I could have you blindfolded and my hands tied behind my back." "All you can do is talk," said Richard. "I would like to see you back up your words with action." "I smell a bet," Jace said with a smile. "But it will cost something real. Obviously, money is not an issue for either of us. It can't be something material." They sat for several hours, figuring out what to bet on and what the loser would have to do. Finally, Richard proposed terms. "So you're saying you can have any woman, right?" asked Richard, picking up the newspaper. He then flipped to the recently engaged section. "Let's choose 3 pairs for the bet. In 3 years, we'll have a party. You will need to have the wife of each of these husbands humiliate him in front of an audience. If you succeed, you win the bet. What do you want if you win?" "Damn, it'll be hard, but it's possible," Jace said. "But it will cost you dearly. I know there's always been a code between us, but if I win, I'll get your blessing to court your ex, Samantha." Samantha was the only girl Richard loved. When she left him, he took the breakup hard. Trying to forget her became the catalyst for his woman-loving behavior. Seeing her with a friend would be devastating for him. "Not only will you have to introduce us, but you will also have to convince her to go on a date with me." "Though I don't think it'll take much convincing," Jace laughed. Jace knew he had caught Richard off guard with his proposal. However, Richard could not back down. He began to consider what equally destructive reward he could offer in return. "Okay, I agree," Richard smiled. "But only if you give me the same blessing for someone you care about, Heidi." "You sick bastard," Jace continued. "You want me to take my 16-year-old sister out with you? What the hell, dude? Listen, in 3 years, she will be 19. She will be an adult. Why does she need an old man like me? But damn, if you're not sure you can win, I understand," Richard grinned. "You're a real son of a bitch, but I'm not going to back down. In 3 years, you'll have to put up with me dating your sweet Samantha." "Agreed," Jace announced. Over the next week, the two friends hired a security committee to design the bet. Since money was not an issue, they wanted a fair and impartial execution of the event. Reluctantly, Richard agreed that Jace could also use the firm to research each couple to find out what he was dealing with. They came up with the idea of holding an exclusive party where the seduction would take place. Since the husband was going to be humiliated in front of others, they came up with a test of fidelity theme for the party. The entire event was to be recorded on a closed camera for guests to view. They thought they could throw a fun party with a twist that people would talk about for years. The company did a good job. She followed each couple for several years from their wedding day until the event itself. They came up with clever ways to lure every couple to the party. For example, they could send an invitation on behalf of one of the couple's relatives. They wanted to create a guppy in a Shark Tank situation. 3 years later, couple number 1, John and Jenny. Jenny has been Lisa's best friend since middle school. They did everything together. After school, they went to college together. Jenny was always a little jealous of Lisa. While Jenny was attractive herself, Lisa was on another level. Every time they went out to meet guys, Lisa always had first choice. This upset Jenny at first, but over time she learned to accept it. Having Lisa as a friend wasn't always a bad thing. Usually attractive men went in pairs, and the one Lisa didn't choose was usually better than the one Jenny might have chosen herself. The real problem was that Jenny was shy. Lisa was not only beautiful, but her radiant personality made her even more attractive. Jenny is used to Lisa being in control of the situation. Instead of learning from Lisa, she simply sat in the passenger seat and followed her. Until today, Lisa always planned their joint events. Lisa and her husband Ray were very active in Jenny and John's lives. It was Ray who introduced Jenny to John. John has been Ray's friend since school. After college, when Ray started dating Lisa, he got involved with John again. Since Jenny was always around, they soon became acquainted and liked each other. The couple dated for several years. After Lisa and Ray got married, it was only a matter of time before John and Jenny followed suit. Both couples even bought houses on the same street. It was rare to find a moment when they weren't spending time together. Growing up, Lisa and Jenny were big Crosstown Saints fans. Lisa was probably more into them than Jenny, but everything Lisa did, Jenny followed suit. One day Ray came home from work and told Lisa that he had a huge surprise for her. One of his clients added him to the guest list for an exclusive Hollywood party. Not only that, but he had a +3. Lisa was thrilled to hear that there would be a lot of celebrities at the event. "Oh my God!" screamed Lisa. "Jenny will be delighted when I tell her." "Are you sure we should invite Jenny and John?" Ray asked. "Of course, who else would we go with?" answered Lisa with a puzzled look on her face. "Okay, see if they can go," Ray continued. "But I need to know right away so I can add their names to the list." In a couple of weeks, it was time to go to the party. Lisa and Jenny were dressed smartly and looked amazing. This was the most exciting thing that had happened to them in a long time. When they arrived at the party, the security was pretty tight. Their IDs were checked to ensure they were who they said they were. Each person was forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. There was even a notary public to certify each contract. "Why do we need to sign this?" John asked. "You don't have to sign anything, but then I can't let you through," the guard replied, smiling. "Listen, these parties can get pretty wild. There are a lot of celebrities here. Nobody wants to be on TMZ, if you know what I mean. Now give me your phones. You'll get them back at the end." The couples complied and were allowed into the party. The party did not disappoint. The food was amazing, and the bar offered only elite drinks. The party took place on a huge estate with many rooms of different sizes. There seemed to be different parties going on in different parts of the house at the same time. A live band played in one room, a DJ played club music in another, and a famous rapper freestyled. As usual, Lisa was in control of everything that happened. Jenny was starting to get annoyed that Lisa was dragging her around with her everywhere. Lisa looked gorgeous and attracted the attention of many men at the party. Jenny felt a little invisible while Lisa basked in the attention. As the evening went on, the alcohol continued to flow. While the girls were dancing, the guys noticed a former MLB player behind the bar and started talking to him. When the girls approached the guys who didn't want to leave, they said they wanted to explore the house. The girls went on their adventure while the guys stayed and continued to communicate with the former athlete. "There are so many hot guys here," Lisa laughed. "I know, it's crazy," Jenny agreed. When the girls entered the new room, Lisa opened her mouth in surprise. "Damn it! Look, it's Jace Parker. I can't believe he's here. I'm going to faint." Lisa was out of breath. "I never thought I would meet him. He's on my cheating list. Do you think he'll have sex with me?" Jenny just rolled her eyes, as if Jace Parker would take it like that will lead her to the bedroom right now. But something unexpected happened. Jace walked towards the girls. "I'm Jace. What brings a cute girl like you to this party?" he asked, turning to Jenny while ignoring Lisa. "We, got an invitation through work," Jenny stammered. Lisa abruptly intervened in the conversation. "I'm Lisa." "Who are you?" Jace asked, looking at Jenny. "I'm Jenny." She answered in surprise, not believing that Jace was interested in her. She noticed how irritation began to appear on Lisa's face. "Would you like to dance, Jenny?" asked Jace. "Of course," she replied, giving Lisa an "oh my God" look as she took Jace's hand. While they were dancing, some other guy at the party asked Lisa to dance. Not wanting to stand alone, she agreed. As they danced, Jenny felt Lisa's jealous gaze on her as Jace held her tightly. "You're so beautiful," Jace whispered in her ear. "Wow, he thinks I'm beautiful," Jenny thought. When the music ended, Jace offered Jenny a drink. She was already a little tipsy, but quickly agreed, and they headed to the bar. As they drank and chatted, Jace started talking about things that really interested Jenny. It seemed to her that they had a lot in common. As they continued to drink and talk, Lisa abandoned her dance partner to join them and tried her best to insert her remarks into the conversation, sending Jace a look of desire. This was starting to really irritate Jenny. Couldn't Lisa have let her win at least once? Jenny thought. Lisa literally threw herself at Jace while Jenny held his attention. And then it happened. Jace whispered in Jenny's ear, "I'm going to have sex with one of you right now. The choice is yours." Jenny didn't hesitate for a moment and took Jace's hand. "This time Lisa will not take away her victory. Will you excuse us?" Jace said to Lisa and led Jenny into another room, which he opened with a key. Lisa was shocked. Is she really doing this? She laughed to herself. As soon as the door slammed behind them, Jenny and Jace started kissing. They had sex. "You're special," Jace said. "I can't believe I did this," Jenny said. They both laughed. Jace then said, "Let's go back to your friend." Jenny panicked when she didn't see Lisa where she left her. When she returned to the bar, she was horrified to see Jace leading Lisa into the same room. At that moment, she realized that she was just entertainment for him. There was nothing special about her. She was just one of many who helped him blow off some steam. For the first time in her life, she felt like a cheap woman of easy virtue. Her only consolation was that Lisa would also be forced to keep this secret. She asked the bartender to pour her another drink and drank it in one gulp. A few minutes later, Lisa returned with a satisfied smile on her face. "It was amazing," Lisa said. "Now I can die happy. Let's keep this a secret, Jenny, okay?" Jenny simply nodded. They quickly realized that they had been gone for quite some time and hurried to find their husbands. Luckily, when the girls returned, their husbands were still having fun with the baseball player. They wondered if the men even noticed them. "Looks like your other halves are back," the baseball player laughed. "Now you have to behave yourself." And with that, he patted them on the back, took his drink, and left. "What was that supposed to mean?" asked Lisa. "Who knows?" Ray answered. "The guy is already a little tipsy." The couples each took another drink as the lights in the house began to flicker. "What's happening?" Lisa asked with a puzzled look. "They want everyone in the main ballroom for the event," the bartender said. When they reached the ballroom, there was already a large crowd of people there. The band had stopped playing and the stage was empty. "I wonder what this all means," Ray said. Then a beautiful Asian woman in an evening dress came on stage. She radiated energy and enthusiasm. "Is everyone here having fun?" she asked the crowd. The crowd cheered loudly. "Is everyone behaving badly?" she shouted. The crowd roared its approval again. The presenter then took a card and announced John's name, asking him to come up to the stage. John looked at the others in surprise and slowly walked towards the stage. "So, John, have you been good today?" asked the presenter. Yeah, I guess," John answered hesitantly. "Did you come here alone?" she continued. "No, I came with my wife and friends," he replied. At that moment, a spotlight illuminated the group. "Is this them?" asked the presenter. "Yes, that's them." "Did you kiss a woman who is not your wife tonight?" she asked. "No, I didn't," John replied. Then a video appeared on the large screen behind them. It showed the moment when John and Ray stood at the bar and talked to two beautiful women who were 20 years younger than them. The video ended with a scene where one of the girls suggested that John go up to the upstairs room and have fun. "As much as I want it right now, I think my wife may deprive me of some important body parts soon after. Therefore, I am forced to decline your generous offer," John replied. "Your loss," the girl said, shrugging and walking away. The audience began to boo. Well, guys," the presenter intervened. You should be applauding him, not whistling. I would be proud if my boyfriend behaved like this with other attractive young women. Jenny felt the guilt begin to choke her. Her hero husband showed himself as a true gentleman in front of everyone. The presenter continued, "Your wife is a lucky woman to have such a faithful husband. But are you happy? Do you think your wife was faithful to you?" Jenny's heart began to pound. Where would this question lead? "Certainly," John stated proudly. "She is my stronghold. I trust her completely." "Well, maybe you shouldn't be so gullible," the presenter said with some irony in her voice. Then the image of Jace appeared on the screen, holding Jenny's hand and leading her into that same closed room. "It looks like your stronghold is going to rock the boat," the host said mockingly. The crowd gasped as the screen cut to show Jenny cheating on him. John was in complete shock and couldn't believe his eyes. "What do you think of your dear wife now?" asked the presenter. "Not even 10 minutes later, and she's out of your sight, and she's already sleeping with another guy. If I were a gambling woman, I would bet that this is not the first time." The crowd started booing Jenny. She too was shocked and started crying when she saw the pain on her husband's face. "I'm so sorry," Jenny said, sobbing. "I was just so caught up in the moment, I didn't want this to happen." The host continued, "John, I know this is hard to watch, but you need to see who your wife really is." John didn't know what to do. Everyone looked at him. He turned to his company and said, "I need to go home." Then, turning to his wife, he added, "Find a place to stay tonight, Jenny." As he left the hall, he remembered that he needed to pick up his phone. Fortunately, it had already been prepared and handed over to him. "What the hell, Lisa? Did you know about this?" Ray asked furiously. "I knew she left, but—" Lisa began to stutter. The presenter then said, "Oh, Raymond, you should probably look at the screen now." On the screen, they showed Lisa also cheating. Ray turned to Lisa, furious. "And don't come home," he rushed towards the exit, trying to catch up with John. The crowd began chanting, "Women of easy viability." Both women, sobbing, hugged each other, covered their faces with their hands, and ran out the door. "It was something unimaginable," Jace boasted to Richard. "I can't believe how many people have expressed their admiration, saying what an amazing party it was. People want more." "You are a real monster," Richard shook his head disapprovingly. "Your sadistic friends are just like you. You destroyed 2 marriages with your own hands. Why did you have to drag Jenny's friend into this? She wasn't part of the bet." "Have you seen how hot she is? She begged for it," Jace replied. "She was so jealous of her not-so-attractive friend that she slept with me first. I may have even saved their friendship." The guests really enjoyed being involved. This got me thinking, what if we somehow integrated this into the party? We will tell all returning guests that several new targets will be invited. At the end of the party, we will announce the targets in front of everyone. We will create a room where guests can place bets on how far each seducer will go with a target. Will the lady give in to the wolves while her husband is just a few rooms away? It will be great, like our own episode of Black Mirror. We made this bet, and I'm keeping my end of the deal. It will be especially nice to have sex with your Samantha, but we can have fun while we organize it all. "Look, you just got lucky with Jenny," Richard replied. "Don't let it go to your head. We both know that the only reason she was such an easy target was because she was in love with you at one time. I don't want to disappoint you, but not every girl on our list will fit this model. I took out the other 2 dossiers. Looks like none of them have even heard of you." "It just adds uncertainty for the guests," Jace replied. "The more uncertainty, the more excitement." The truth was that Richard was starting to get nervous. He saw how easily the girls betrayed their vows for Jake's sake. The only thing keeping him from Samantha was this bet. He knew that if he backed down, Jace would lose respect for him and still follow her. All he could do now was sit on the bench and watch the accidents pile up. Couple number 2, Joe and Angie. Joe and Angie were high school sweethearts. However, Angie's religious family never approved of Joe. Although Angie was innocent, Everyone thought that Joe was a snake who was trying to take her virginity. Angie was adamant in her decision to wait until marriage before going all the way. She wanted to give herself only to her husband. After school, Joe enrolled in a local school, dreaming of one day opening his own business installing and repairing air conditioners. Angie took courses at a local college, but both continued to live with their parents. 2 years later, they both found jobs and decided they wanted to move in together. However, Angie's parents, despite the fact that she was already over 20, did not allow her to move until she had an engagement ring on her finger. The couple soon got engaged and found an apartment, but still didn't cross the line. The wedding was about to take place, and they could finally have sex. The week leading up to the wedding was very difficult for both of them. They had been together for 6 years. Sexual tension reached its maximum. Yes, the wedding was the big event they were looking forward to, but their thoughts were mainly occupied with sexual fantasies. They almost gave in several times, but they held on and waited. That week, they were both on the edge, almost ready, but still holding back. Many people say that losing your virginity is an awkward and clumsy experience. But when Joe and Angie finally had sex, things were completely different. Years of waiting and accumulated tension meant that when it finally happened, it was the most beautiful moment of their lives. The sex was so amazing the first time that subsequent encounters could no longer compare. The sex remained enjoyable, but deep down they both wondered if it would ever be that good again. Because it was no longer as bright, the couple began to do it less and less. After 2.5 years, they had to discuss the waning passion in their relationship. They eventually concluded that the sex was so great the first time because they waited. They decided to abstain from sex for a year to build up sexual tension again. Angie has played the piano since childhood. She was very talented, and people loved to hear her play. After their wedding, Joe and Angie decided to buy a house. However, houses in their area turned out to be too expensive, and they decided to move to another city. Angie didn't know many people in the new place, so she joined the local church. It so happened that the pianist of the church choir recently left the city. When the church leadership learned how good Angie was at playing, they asked her to take the position. This became her social life. Angie met many new friends through church and her piano playing. Sometime later, Angie was approached by a young teenage girl, Emma, asking her to help with her YouTube channel. Emma dreamed of becoming a pop star and needed someone to play piano on her songs. Emma was a very talented singer, and her YouTube channel was starting to gain attention. Because the congregation adored Emma and Angie, they were allowed to rehearse in the church building when it was not being used for religious activities. Angie and Emma spent several hours a week rehearsing and writing new material for the channel, which was becoming increasingly popular. One day, Emma came to rehearsal so excited that she was literally jumping for joy. "What happened, Emma?" Angie asked. "Oh my God, I can't believe this is going to happen," Emma screamed in delight. "Jace Parker is going to meet me. He said he liked my voice for a song he was writing and might want me to sing it." "Who is Jace Parker?" Angie asked carefully. "You don't know who Jace Parker is?" Emma rolled her eyes. "Haven't you heard of the Crosstown Saints? I think they won 3 Grammys. Something familiar, but we usually listen to country music at home, so I'm not too aware of all the pop stars," Angie replied. About an hour later, 2 men came through the door. One of them was carrying an acoustic guitar in a case. "Hi, I'm Jace, and this is my driver Jimmy," Jace said. "You must be Emma." Emma shyly shook Jace's hand. Jace then turned to Angie. "Who are you?" he asked with a very flirtatious smile that made Angie look down. "I'm Angie, playing piano with Emma," she replied with a shy smile. She didn't know Jace, but she found him very charming and attractive. "Let's get started," Jace said, taking the guitar out of its case. "Let's start with that original song you have on YouTube. What is it called? Wonderland?" "Yes, Wonderland," Emma replied. All three began performing the song together. Jace had obviously already done some work on this song and suggested a few subtle changes that greatly improved it. He also harmonized with Emma, which gave Angie goosebumps. Wow, that sounded amazing, Angie noted, like something you'd hear on the radio. Yes, that's very good, Jace noted. Angie, did you write the music for this song? Yes, I wrote the chords and Emma wrote the lyrics and melody. I think I'd like to record this song with you, Emma. Do you mind? Asked Jace. We'll have a lot of work to do, but I'd like to do this with you over the next few weeks. It's like a dream coming true, Emma glowed with happiness. Over the next few weeks, Jace and the two girls rehearsed in the church building. Jace constantly paid a lot of attention to Angie. Attention from a famous and attractive man did wonders for her self-esteem. She began to look forward to her next meetings with Jace. Angie even started dressing more revealingly when she was around him. She didn't realize it herself. She also didn't tell Joe what was going on. He knew she was working with Emma on a YouTube channel, but he didn't know anything about Jace or the song they were working on. She liked to have something of her own that only she knew about. One day, during one of the rehearsals, Jace said, "I like your new outfit. It's much more revealing than your usual stuff. You have a great body. You should show it more often." Comments like these did wonders for Angie's self-esteem. She began to dream about Jace more and more often. When they were together, he became more and more affectionate with her, taking her hand, explaining something. Since self-restraint awaited her at home, she enjoyed this attention. A few weeks later, Jace told the girls that the song was ready to be recorded. His limousine picked up the girls from the church and took them to the recording studio. Angie told Joe that she was meeting her friends after work and would be back late. The recording went well and the song sounded great. Jace even let Angie play keys on the track. When they finished, Jace pulled out a bottle of champagne and poured it for Angie and Emma. "For a great song," Jace said. "Emma, you can't drink alcohol," Angie warned. "Your parents will kill me if I bring you home drunk." The limousine soon returned to the church to drop Angie off at her car. When the car pulled into the parking lot, Jace leaned over and kissed Angie. "I have to go," she said and ran to the car. All the way home, Angie's thoughts were immersed in a mixture of intense love and desire. When she walked through the door, she literally attacked Joe. "I thought we were going to wait another 6 months," Joe asked in surprise. "Don't you think we've waited long enough?" she answered. Joe wasn't about to argue with his wife, and the couple had the best sex they'd had since their wedding day. Over the next few weeks, Jace continued to text Angie. They became more and more open. He told her how much he had been attracted to her since that evening, and what he would like to do with her. She understood that this was wrong, but the excitement from the attention from the famous musician turned out to be too strong. She even sent Jace some explicit photos. Angie continued to try to awaken the same passion in Joe, but over time Joe began to withdraw more and more. All the passion came only from Angie. She realized that it is very difficult to have sex with a person if you feel that he is not interested in it and is only doing it to please. One day Joe came home with news. One of his new clients gave him 2 tickets to an exclusive Hollywood party. Joe thought it would be a great place to make new business contacts and perhaps attract new clients. Since he had 4 tickets, he decided to invite his friend Dale and his wife Martha. He thought Angie and Martha got along quite well. Angie was excited about the upcoming party and carefully selected her outfit. She bought a new dress that was much more revealing than her usual dresses. The situation with Jace made her feel sexy, and she loved this new sensation. When Joe saw her dress, he almost choked. "Wow," he said, "I've never seen you in anything like this." "Isn't it too revealing?" Angie asked. "No, I like the way you look in that dress. I think I'll enjoy taking it off you even more after the party," he winked. When they arrived at Dale's house, it turned out that Martha could not go. She was not feeling well. "Martha's not feeling well, so I'll go alone if that's no problem," Dale asked. "What a shame," Angie said. "I really wanted to spend the evening with her." "Of course, it's no problem, Dale." Once Dale got into the car, the 3 headed to the event. Dale was amazed at how great Angie looked. "Wow, Angie, this is just an amazing dress," he praised her. "Thanks, Dale," Angie replied. Arriving at the scene, they encountered heavy security. They had to sign a non-disclosure agreement and hand over their phones. Angie was delighted to spot several celebrities on the way inside. There were also waiters walking around with appetizers and glasses of champagne. Everyone grabbed a glass and began exploring the estate. When they reached the main ballroom, they were surprised by a live band on stage. "Can we dance, Joe?" Angie asked. "Maybe a little later. There's a full bar here, and I'd prefer something stronger than champagne," Joe replied, heading towards the bar. "Who should I bring?" "Get me a beer," Dale said. Angie took Dale's hand and led him to the dance floor. She received attention from many attractive men while she danced with Dale. When Joe finally returned, they decided to leave this hall and explore the rest of the estate. As soon as Angie finished her glass, some waiter immediately offered a new one for her. She was already a little unsteady when they entered the room with the DJ. Joe said he wanted to hang out for a while and asked Dale to look after Angie. She wasn't happy about Joe leaving her alone again, and her frustration grew. Wine and attention from attractive men fueled her desire, but now she was left with Dale, who was rather boring. About 40 minutes passed, and several glasses later, Joe finally returned. Angie was angry at him for being away for so long, but was glad that he was finally back with her. At that moment, Dale noticed country star Travis Winston at the bar. "Joe, look," Dale said excitedly. "It's Travis Winston. We need to talk to him." And they began to slowly make their way to the bar. Joe and Dale were huge fans of Travis Winston and were thrilled to have the opportunity to meet him. "Oh, great," Angie thought. "Now we have to be stuck talking to this guy." Angie was slowly walking towards the bar when she felt someone touch her shoulder. Turning around, she saw a familiar face. It was Jimmy, Jace's driver. "Funny to meet you here," Jimmy said. "Jace is downstairs. Do you want me to take you to him?" Angie's heart began to beat faster at the thought that Jace was somewhere nearby. She was already a little drunk, and the alcohol only increased her desire. She turned to Joe, who was deep in conversation with Travis. "Honey, this is my friend Jimmy. He wants to show me the rest of the party. Do you mind if I go for a while?" Joe barely heard her because he was too engrossed in his conversation with Travis. "Yes, of course, dear. Have fun." Angie's heart began to pound faster as Jimmy led her down the spiral staircase. She was excited to see Jace in her new, provocative clothes. Would he really be cold to her in front of his friends, she wondered. Her doubts were cleared when she saw his face light up with a wide smile as soon as he noticed her. Jace hurried towards her as she entered a small room with a bar, where there were about 20 people. "Angie, how did you end up here? Are you alone?" asked Jace. "It seems so," Angie replied. "My husband is upstairs, but he's busy." "What a fool he is. I wouldn't leave you alone for a minute if you were my wife." Jace laughed. "You look amazing. Glad you're here. I have a surprise for you." Jace took her hand and led her to a private room with a lock on the door. When they were alone, he took the remote control and pressed the button. "This is our song, the final version. She'll be out soon," Jace said as his and Emma's song started playing in the room. "Oh my God, this sounds amazing," Angie exclaimed enthusiastically as they began to slow dance. "We can create something great together," Jace replied, moving closer and kissing her again. Joe and Dale had a blast listening to Travis Winston tell stories about how he came up with one of Dale's favorite songs. Suddenly, the light began to flicker. "It's my call, guys. I have to go. It was nice meeting you," Travis said. Joe and Dale noticed everyone heading towards the main ballroom. "What's happening?" Joe asked one of the guests. "Now bets on women of easy virtue will begin. Hurry up," he replied. Joe and Dale looked at each other in confusion, but decided to follow the crowd. They arrived just as the presenter entered the stage. So, as many of you know, the bookmaker has been closed for the last 90 minutes. For those who don't know, good luck. We would like to invite Mr. James K., Mr. Luke Sage, and Mr. Joe Turner to the stage, the presenter announced. Joe looked at Dale with a puzzled expression and followed him onto the stage. He sat down on one of the 3 chairs that were set up. "So we're here at this party to test your marriages," the host continued. "Each of your wives was approached by a celebrity that night. Now we will see if they cheated on you with this celebrity. The thing is, you never know who you are married to until they are tested in a real situation. Let's hope you're married to who you thought you were." All 3 men on stage looked at each other in confusion. The presenter continued, "James will be first." Then James' wife Lucy appeared on screen dancing with the famous TV presenter Wendell Carter. Wendell leaned down to kiss her. It was clear that she was very drunk. "I can't do this," she said. "I'm a married woman." "So what?" Wendell replied. "He'll never know. When else will you have this opportunity?" "Sorry, I can't," Lucy replied and ran out. "So let's count. Kiss," said the presenter. "Not that bad, hubby." James stood up from the stage, grabbed his drunk wife by the wrist, and left the party with her. The presenter continued, "Next is Luke. Let's see how your wife Tracy did." The screen switched to Tracy, who was smoking on some terrace with famous baseball player Brett Day. Brett told her how beautiful she was. When he tried to kiss her, she turned her head away. Then Brett hugged her, and Tracy hit him. The crowd laughed loudly. "I see we have one lively lady here," the presenter laughed. "Congratulations, Tracy passed the test." Joe sat on stage while Luke left the stage to join his wife. "What's the point of all this?" he thought. "This is so stupid." Then he realized that his wife, Angie, would be next. He also hadn't seen her for a long time. Could Angie really do something like that? No, this is impossible, he thought. "Well, guys," the presenter continued, "we have come to the last husband. Are you ready, Joe?" Joe just shrugged. He wanted this stupid farce to end quickly. Then his wife appeared on the screen with Jace. "My husband is upstairs, but he's busy," Angie said. "It's a shame. If you were my wife, I wouldn't let you go for a second." Jace laughed. "You look great, by the way. I'm glad you're here. I have a surprise for you." Jace took her hand and led her to a private room with a lock on the door. The presenter continued, "Well, this is getting interesting. I just found out that this seduction is not over yet. We'll switch to a live feed from that room to see if there's any progress." The camera switched. The crowd inhaled collectively and loudly. Joe was in a state of shock. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. His sweet, loving wife was there, cheating on him. Joe didn't even know who this guy was. Who is this woman? Joe thought. He had never heard her talk like that. They haven't had sex like this since their wedding night. How could she be so thoughtless? Just jump on some famous guy? Joe felt his life crumble before his eyes. The presenter continued, "Well, Joe, it seems your innocent little wife is not so innocent after all." He quickly scanned the crowd and was stunned to see that everyone was watching the screen intently. The destruction of his marriage had become entertainment for them. Joe got up from his chair and slowly walked towards the exit. Dale walked up to him on the way. "I'll be waiting in the car, Dale," Joe sighed. "Please wait for Angie and bring her to the car as soon as you can." The security guard quickly handed Joe his phone on the way out. Joe sat in the car and cried. About 10 minutes later, a disheveled Angie entered the ballroom looking for her husband and Dale. Everyone looked at her and grinned. Everyone seems to know what happened, she thought. Seeing Dale, she immediately went to him. "Look, everyone, the Lady of Honor has arrived," the presenter announced. Angie looked around in confusion, then saw a replay of her having sex with Jace on the screen. "Oh my gosh, did Joe see that?" Angie asked Dale. "He saw it. Everyone saw it. Half the guests were betting on whether you would make it through. Looks like you failed the test. Joe is in the car. He took it very hard." The whole crowd laughed at him. Angie looked back. Everyone looked at her disapprovingly. "How could I be so stupid? I just ruined my marriage for what? Sex with a celebrity. How did I not see this? It was a setup, a trap," she thought. Looking at all these judgmental looks, She realized that there was no such thing as a trap on the stage of public opinion. She was an adulteress, and she would have to accept it. There were no excuses. She made many choices that led to this situation. She couldn't take it all back and erase those images from her husband's head. She will have to answer for this. "Come on, Dale," she sobbed quietly as she walked toward the car. "Well, I'd say the party was awesome," Jace boasted to Richard. "You set them up, and I bring them down." "I must admit, you were on top this time," Richard replied. "You turned an innocent church girl into a real woman of easy virtue. Even I lost some money." The guests were delighted, especially after Wendell and Brett screwed up. I was worried that Brett would make a scene with his wife. He has absolutely no game. We need to make sure he never enters a competition like this again, Jace laughed. It turns into a legendary 70s party. Soon we'll have to charge money for it. "Aren't you sorry for what you do to these couples?" asked Richard. "It's all on you, Richard," Jace replied. "It was you who wanted to humiliate their husbands. Now don't you dare moralize to me. I know you have a lot to lose if I win this bet, but I have a lot at stake too. Your attempt to make me feel guilty is definitely a ploy to throw me off balance. Let's face it, you saw how I handled the first two wives on the list, and now you're afraid. You're afraid that one day your Samantha will only think about me. Look, you've done well so far, I admit that. Wait until you see the next one. She's one of those people who doesn't know who you are," Richard smiled. "It's the same thing you said about the last one. She didn't know who I was either. We've all seen how quickly this has changed. It doesn't matter who they are. If she didn't leave her husband for a woman, I can handle it," Jace said self-confidently. Couple number 3, Ryan and Amy. Ryan studied accounting in college. His father, being an accountant, pushed him into this profession. As soon as he graduated from college, he quickly got a prestigious job. Soon he began earning almost $100,000 a year. The problem was that he hated his job. He felt locked like a caged animal in the office. One day, he watched the movie Fight Club and thought, "I need the same deliverance that they have." He immediately began boxing at a local gym. He actually did quite well, but he soon realized that this was only a temporary solution. After 3 years of work, tax season almost broke him, and he decided to change something. Since he was still living with his parents, he had saved quite a lot of money. The day he decided enough was enough, he bought an old VW Vanagon van with a Westphalia roof and started driving around to jam band shows. He traveled from gig to gig in his van. At first, he simply spent his savings, but he soon realized that there were hundreds of concert-goers who came with money. He decided to start selling groceries, beer, and t-shirts. When all his t-shirts were confiscated, he realized he needed to do something different. Since he played bass in college, he quickly found a group of other touring musicians to play with. At some point, his band in the parking lot began to attract spectators. They made little money from donations, but people liked their songs. Ryan decided to buy recording equipment so he could sell CDs at his shows. This continued for several years, and Ryan became very good at recording music tracks. His recordings sounded like they were made in a professional studio. Eventually, other bands began approaching him to record and mix their work. Because of his accounting background, Ryan was also a master at budgeting. His services not only helped struggling bands record albums, but also helped them manage their meager finances. Thanks to his many talents, he began to earn decent money. It was at this moment that he met Amy. She was in a similar situation, trying to find herself. She quickly realized that all those years in art school did not lead to a high-paying job. Amy started selling her art on shows and generally did pretty well. When she met Ryan, they immediately hit it off. Soon she was living with him in his van. The couple traveled for another year before they decided to settle down. Ryan got a job at a local recording studio, and Amy got a job at an animal shelter. Amy was your typical vegan hippie with a kind heart. She was the kind of girl you see at protests trying to change the world. Soon after the couple got married, Ryan decided to open his own recording studio. His studio became a place where jam bands came. Although most of his clients were unknown to the general public, famous musicians sometimes walked through his doors. These were usually friends doing a favor by adding a banjo to a jam band album, for example. One day, Amy came home from work and asked Ryan, "Do you know who Jace Parker is?" "I don't know him personally, but yes, of course I know who he is," Ryan replied. "Why are you asking?" "He seems to really want me," she replied. "He's been coming to the shelter every week for the last 3 weeks, pretending to want to help, but in reality, he's been flirting with me quite actively." Ryan felt like he was enjoying this conversation. He had had a fantasy for years and wanted to see Amy having sex with another man. About a year ago, he finally got up the courage to talk about his fantasy, but Amy wasn't interested. He knew he wouldn't like it if she wasn't involved, so he let the idea go. Sometimes he did bring up the topic, hoping to plant a seed in her head, but that was where it ended. "Is it suitable for sex?" Ryan asked with a smile. "You and your weird quirks," Amy laughed. "He's certainly attractive, but he seems a little arrogant." "This guy is a famous musician," Ryan explained. "He's probably not used to women telling him no. He probably sees your lack of interest as a challenge. Besides, he's very rich. You should at least get a couple of free lunches from him." Over the next few weeks, Jace continued to visit the shelter whenever Amy was there. He started bringing friends with him to adopt animals. He realized that every time there was a home for the animal, Amy became happier. Unexpectedly, she agreed to his dinner offer, and he took her to a trendy vegan restaurant. Jace also made sure she drank alcohol throughout lunch. He learned a lot about her during this dinner. Not only did she love helping animals, but she was also passionate about her art. Jace carefully memorized everything he learned for future use. He also didn't like finding out how much she loved her husband. Ryan was everything to her. Every time Jace tried to badmouth Ryan, Amy started talking about him with dreamy eyes. He quickly learned that he needed to avoid talking about her husband. One day, Jace appeared on a national radio show. He spent some time discussing animal adoption and mentioned the shelter where Amy worked several times. The next day, when Jace came to the shelter, Amy hugged him tightly, thanking him for what he had done. This was the first time Jace felt like he had made any progress. Knowing that Jace was working hard to win his wife, Ryan was incredibly excited. He really wanted to live out his fantasy, so whenever they were together, he tried to talk about Jace in a good light. He saw that all of Jace's charm was slowly beginning to pay off. Later that day at the recording studio, Ryan was having a beer with one of the studio musicians named Hank. Hank has worked with many different bands as a fill-in musician. "Hey, do you know Jace Parker?" Ryan asked. "Yes, I have known him for several years. Why are you asking?" "He often visits the shelter where my wife works." "Just trying to get an idea of what kind of person he is," Ryan replied. "Listen, you didn't hear this from me. I'm only saying this because you're my friend and I could get into a lot of legal trouble if anyone finds out what I told you. But keep an eye on this guy, especially in front of your wife," Hank warned. "What do you mean?" Ryan asked with a worried look on his face. "Well, let's just say he likes married women, and publicly, it's kind of his hobby," Hank said. "He sees married women as trophies and immediately dumps them after he gets them. Be especially careful if your wife is invited to one of his parties." Ryan thanked Hank for his honesty, and they continued drinking. When Ryan returned home, Amy was beaming with joy at what Jace had done for the orphanage on the radio program. "Today, we have found homes for almost 50 animals. That's about 30 fewer people who will need to be euthanized." "Your knight in shining armor," Ryan laughed. "How are you going to thank him?" "You're sick," Amy snapped. "Although I do find kindness sexually attractive." Ryan was glad to hear what Hank told him about Jace. He was now sure that Amy was one of his targets. He was also pleased to know that Jace abandoned his trophies immediately after he got his way. Ryan didn't want some rich guy to steal his wife. He just wanted Jace to fulfill his sexual fantasy. The next day, Ryan decided to use Amy's car to run errands because her car was blocking his own. As he pulled out onto the road, he noticed that one of Jace's songs was playing. There was his CD in Amy's car. Ryan realized that the situation was heating up. That night, when they had sex, Ryan suggested role-playing games with James, a theme they really liked. The next day, Jace unexpectedly showed up at Amy's house while Ryan was at work. Jace wanted to see her paintings because he needed something unique for the cover of his new album. He remembered her mentioning her paintings during their lunch at a vegan restaurant. Amy was happy to see him and showed him her studio. "Wow, I really like this painting," Jace expressed admiration, holding up a painting of a wilting sunflower. "Can I use this for my album cover? I'll pay you, of course. How do you like $5,000? Amy was thrilled that Jace wanted to use her art for his cover. "I'll be glad if you use my work, but I won't take the money. The fact that my art will be seen will already be a sufficient reward for me." Jace left the house with a smile, the painting in his hands. Amy was in seventh heaven. About a week later, Ryan was in his studio when he received an express mail envelope. Opening it, he found 2 invitations to a luxurious party at a Hollywood mansion. The invitations were sent from one of the record company executives. Ryan quickly went to the company's website to see what artists they represented. As it turned out, Jace Parker was among them. This is it, Ryan thought. This is where he will try to carry out his plan. When Ryan returned home, he told Amy about the party. She seemed excited. "Maybe your boyfriend Jace will be there," Ryan mimicked her. "I'm sure he will try to take you to a secluded place and have sex." "Surely he'll try," Amy answered. Wow, Ryan thought. She's not denying it anymore. In the evening, a car came to pick them up at the event. Amy's phone rang with a message from the shelter. It turned out that Jace donated $20,000 to the shelter. "Oh my God," Amy exclaimed. "Jace just donated $20,000 to an animal shelter." "That's a lot of money," Ryan said. "How are you going to repay him for his generosity?" "Are you really serious about me sleeping with Jace? You really won't be mad if I do this?" Amy asked. "Absolutely not," Ryan replied. "It would make me so happy. Just make sure it's really what you want. And remember, it's just sex. I'm the one you'll come home to. Be careful and have fun." Amy smiled. Ryan knew Jace was up to something when security forced them to sign a non-disclosure agreement and hand over their phones before entering. Now he understood what Hank meant when he talked about legal problems. During the party, a waitress kept coming up to them with a tray of vodka martinis. This drink was Amy's favorite. Ryan found it funny how Jace resorted to tricks to get Amy drunk, and it really worked. Ryan began to wonder what Jace's plan was to keep them apart. About an hour into the party, Ryan and Amy were approached by a random couple. Chris, the man in the couple, told Ryan that he had specifically sought him out to discuss some technical issues about recording music. Meanwhile, Chris's wife turned to Amy. "Did you see the room with the pool? Come with me. We'll leave the men to their boring conversations, and we'll look for something more interesting," she said, taking Amy by the hand and dragging her along. "See you guys later." Ryan chuckled, realizing what was happening. He began to worry that this might actually happen. To have fun, he decided to play with Chris, ordering him more and more shots. Of course, Ryan poured his own water, but it was fun to watch Chris get drunk. An hour passed, and still no sign of Amy. Ryan was almost sure that something intriguing was happening now, when suddenly the light in the corridor began to flicker. Everyone headed to the ballroom, where the same presenter appeared on stage. Ryan was called to the stage first, and everyone was asked to look at the screen. The first scene showed a rather tipsy Amy Slow dancing with Jace. He pulled her closer, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you want some privacy?" he asked. "I know what you need." Amy looked at Jace with a playful expression, as if understanding his intentions. "It's just, I don't want to ruin our friendship." "How will this ruin our friendship? You want it yourself." "I like you, Jace. I just don't think we should," Amy said weakly. "I want you so bad, Amy. Let's just listen to our bodies." Jace pleaded. Okay, to hell with it. Let's do this quickly, Amy suddenly said with determination. This is getting interesting, the presenter exclaimed as the screen showed Jace taking the key to the ill-fated room. Closing and locking the door behind him, Jace asked, "Do you have protection?" Damn, thought Jace. Will this really be an obstacle for her? Actually, no, he began. Well, I won't do it without him, Amy replied. Jace felt his entire plan begin to fall apart. How could I be so unprepared, he thought. Today is your lucky day, Amy smiled, taking the protection out of her purse. Jace cheered and the screen went dark. The crowd groaned in disappointment. Would you like to go live to see what's happening now? The presenter asked the audience. Ryan was absolutely delighted. This was the moment he had been dreaming about for years. He never thought this could happen. He will finally get to see his wife play the role of star in front of the whole party. The camera panned to the room and the crowd screamed loudly in delight. Wow, that was hot, the presenter announced. She then announced the next husband to be called on stage. Ryan decided to head back into the crowd when he noticed a curtained area to the side of the stage. Coming closer, he looked behind the curtain and saw a guy at a table with a bunch of monitors. He was a nervous young man about 20 years old. Ryan came up behind him and startled him. Look, obviously you're in control here. If you're in control, then you know who I am, Ryan said. I need you to give me a copy of the tape with my wife. I can't do this. I could get into big trouble. The guy began to stutter. That's my wife you wrote down, Ryan said, raising his voice. I used to box. I guess you don't want me to give you a boxing lesson. The guy immediately began frantically rummaging through his backpack and pulled out a flash drive. He quickly found the file he needed, copied it to a flash drive, and handed it to Ryan. Now delete this file from your hard drive, Ryan ordered. If this video ever comes up, I'll come get you. Ryan looked at one of the boxes on the floor. Van Nuys surveillance, he read aloud. I'll know where to find you if I find out you lied to me. Ryan watched as the guy deleted some files and emptied the trash. Everything is deleted, sir. Now please leave me alone. I'm busy with the show. When Ryan left the room, he saw Amy, who looked confused and lost. He quickly walked up to her and kissed her deeply. I love you so much, he said. Thank you for fulfilling my fantasy. Are you really not mad? I was shocked to find out that the whole party was watching us. I'm so embarrassed, Amy cried. Don't worry about it. I made sure all the records were deleted. Let's go home. I can't wait to have you back again. Ryan laughed as they picked up their phones from the front desk. Jace was over the moon after winning Amy over. He was very worried that she would not give in to his persuasion. He felt incredibly lucky that she had gone through with it. He spent more money seducing her than all the others combined, but he knew it was worth it. He had plans to meet Richard to show off. As the party was winding down, Jace spotted Richard and approached him with a big smile. Come to congratulate me, Jace asked. Where do you think I should take Samantha on our first date? Congratulations on getting into Amy's pants. You really tried and surprised me, Richard laughed. As for the bet, I think you should congratulate me on winning it. What are you talking about? Jace asked worriedly. The bet was that I could seduce 3 random wives, and I did it. I even have video evidence. Don't tell me you're going to go back on your words. No, you don't understand, my dear friend, Richard said, inviting Jace to take a walk. Let's go for a walk. When they reached the control room, Richard said to the nervous technician, pull up the recording of the scene from the moment you seduced the first girl. You see, my friend, Richard began to explain. The point of the bet was not to seduce women, but to humiliate their husbands. In each case, I brought the husband on stage in front of the audience while I had sex with their wives right in front of them and the crowd. What could be more humiliating than that? Jace asked, puzzled. I agree with you on the first 2 cases, Richard replied. But did you see what happened on stage while you were having sex with Amy? No, what happened? Jace asked with concern. I'll let you see for yourself. Play the recording, Richard told the technician. The technician showed a video of Ryan having fun on stage while watching the recording. Does this look like someone who has been humiliated? I think you just fulfilled all his fantasies. This guy liked it so much that he even asked our technician for a copy of the recording. Jace turned to the technician. You didn't give him a copy, did you? Sorry, he threatened me. I couldn't do otherwise. I mean, it was his wife. The technician stammered. Damn, Jace cursed. I swear, if this gets on TMZ, you'll be in trouble. Richard chimed in. Calm down, Jace. This guy just wanted the tape for his own pleasure. He's not going to sell the video to TMZ. Now, when are you going to introduce me to your sweet sister? After the party, things started to go wrong for Jenny. John kicked her out of the house, and she had to move back in with her parents. John didn't answer her calls and blocked her on social media. All her attempts to talk to him failed. Finally, one day there was a knock on the door, and Jenny was handed divorce papers. Jenny began seeing a therapist about her jealousy issues with Lisa. Even though Lisa was her best friend, she decided that this was not a healthy friendship. As a result, she sent Lisa a message, explaining that she needed time to herself. It was difficult, but she blocked Lisa's number. Lisa didn't like that Jenny did that. She was going through her own breakup and really needed Jenny's support. Ray began answering her calls again, and she hoped for a reconciliation. She was adamant that she had a free pass, and Ray was beginning to believe that Lisa actually thought she had gotten a pass. Repairing their relationship took a long time. The day after the party, Joe told Angie that he didn't want to hear from Jace anymore. He still loved her very much and wanted to save the marriage. In fact, he chose to sweep the entire incident under the rug. It became difficult when a song Angie co-wrote became a hit. Royalties started coming in, which was both good and bad. The money was necessary, but every check reminded Joe of his wife's betrayal. Emma continued her career as a musician after receiving an agent. Angie still helped her write songs. Joe was losing control when Emma and Jace's song came on the radio. One day, he had a breakdown in a supermarket when he heard a little girl singing this song in line. Joe knew he needed to do something, so he and Angie began seeing a marriage counselor. It helped a little, but Joe still needed something to stop him from reliving the moment. Some days were better than others. Ryan couldn't keep his hands off Amy after that party. Her little trick was so wonderful for both of them that they spent several weeks having sex. The couple decided to experiment a little. Over time, they both realized that sex with others actually improved their own sex lives and strengthened their marriage. Jealousy certainly arose at times, but the knowledge that they could have sex with others and return to each other made their relationship stronger. However, they decided to take a break from their new, exciting lifestyle. Now they are trying to have their first child. Because Jace's album was a hit, Amy's work reached a wider audience. Soon, other musicians began turning to her to create covers for their albums. Ryan did everything he could to help her promote her work and dedicated part of his studio to her paintings. Amy suddenly became popular in the music industry and received an offer from a large clothing company. She now makes thousands of dollars a year in royalties. She spends most of her money on helping animals in need. About 6 months after the last party, Jace and Richard were vacationing in Las Vegas. They ended up in an elite club on the roof. So, is it over between you and my sister? Jace asked. Looks like it, Richard replied. Are you sure you want to hear this? I'm an adult. I can handle it. I haven't talked to Heidi in months, so I have no idea what she was doing, Jace said. Well, she's young, and young girls, let's just say, are into different things, Richard explained. I don't think anything will come of this, to be honest. I understand, she was your conquest, and now it's time to move on, Jace said. I hope your separation won't be too hard for her. Richard laughed. You don't know your sister at all, do you? I don't think she'll be too upset. They ordered more drinks and danced a bit with the girls at the club. Finally, it was time to leave. I booked us a suite. I have a surprise for you, Richard smiled mysteriously. On the way to the room, Richard asked Jace, "Who won our bet? I remember you doing the Heidi part, but I don't remember giving you permission to approach Samantha." "You heard about this, right?" Jace said with an apologetic smile. "Listen, at that moment I felt like you had unfairly robbed me of winning a bet that I thought I had won. When I happened to meet Samantha, I didn't feel so bad about talking to her. After all, nothing serious happened." As they exited the elevator and headed down the hallway to their room, Richard continued, "So you just happened to run into her? Interesting. Well, we'll talk about it later. Like I said, I have a surprise for you." When they entered the huge suite, opening the door to the bedroom, they saw a beautiful naked girl and three men having sex. "Do you remember John, Ray, and Joe?" Richard asked Jace. Hearing Richard's voice, the beautiful young girl shuddered and turned towards the door. "Heidi," Jace shouted, "subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click